Putin's playbook has been predictable for 20 years. Passports first, protection narrative second, military force third, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, Crimea, Donbas. Every single time, the sequence stayed the same, and every single time, it worked. But now Putin is trying to run the same play in Transnistria, and this time, the board has changed completely. On May 15th, Putin signed a decree, fast-track Russian citizenship for anyone in Moldova's breakaway region, no 5-year residency requirement, no language exam, no history test. Just walk into a Russian diplomatic office and become a Russian citizen on foreign soil. 5 days later, the Russian Federation Council approved something even more dangerous. A law giving Putin the authority to use military force anywhere in the world to protect Russian citizens. No limits specified, no scale defined, complete presidential discretion. Here's what we need to figure out together. First, why would Putin move on Transnistria now when Moldova is stronger than it's ever been? Second, what exactly is Moldova doing that has Russia condemned to words instead of tanks? And third, what does this tell us about Russia's capacity to wage war in Eastern Europe right now? The answers are hidden in geography, in numbers, and in a defense line that's rising as we speak. The citizenship decree is systematic. In a region of roughly 470,000 people, more than 200,000 already hold Russian passports. The decree targets the remaining half. If it works, nearly the entire population becomes Russian on paper. Then the legal cover is complete. We're protecting our citizens. That's the narrative. That's the justification. But here's the problem. Since the war began, most Transnistrians have actually preferred Moldovan passports. A Moldovan passport means EU visa-free travel. A Russian passport means isolation. The people Putin claims to protect are actively running away from Russian citizenship. But Putin doesn't need consent. He needs numbers. The second piece of the puzzle came 5 days later. The law passed unanimously through the Duma. It grants Putin authority he never had before, the right to use military force to protect Russian citizens arrested, detained, or prosecuted abroad. Not just in foreign courts, in international judicial bodies Russia doesn't recognize. The form is unspecified. The scale is unspecified. The limits are unspecified. Real Clear Defense's assessment was direct. This law was designed to enshrine the principle that might makes right. Put the two pieces together, and the strategy is obvious. First, make everyone Russian. Then say our Russians are in danger. Then use military force to protect them. This doctrine isn't new. It's the latest link in a 20-year chain. In Abkhazia and South Ossetia, mass passport distribution started in the early 2000s. When Russia attacked Georgia in 2008, the justification was ready. In Crimea, the same process operated quietly. When the peninsula was occupied in 2014, a significant portion of the population was already Russian citizens. In Donbas, it accelerated even further. Fast-track citizenship in 2019, full-scale invasion in 2022. Every time the decree came before military action. And this pattern hasn't stopped. In May 2025, the simplification decree was renewed in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. In March 2026, another was signed in occupied Ukrainian territories. In May 2026, Transnistria's turn came. But here's where the story breaks from the pattern. The question is no longer whether Russia will intervene. The question is whether Russia can, and the answer requires looking at what Moldova is actually doing. Moldova knew Putin had long viewed Transnistria as his own territory, so it activated countermoves before the decree even came. In April 2026, President Sandu declared the commanders of Russian operational forces in Transnistria persona non grata. For years, Russian generals could trigger government crises in Chisinau with a single phone call. Now they can't even enter the country. But Moldova didn't stop there. It tackled the Transnistria issue that had been untouched for 30 years. A 14-page reintegration plan analyzed by Carnegie is the most comprehensive proposal since 2003. The content is radical. The 5+2 negotiation format that lasted 30 years is being abandoned. Russia's presence at the table is no longer wanted. Instead, direct Chisinau-Tiraspol dialogue is envisioned, and a step no previous Moldovan government dared to discuss. Granting special status to Transnistria is no longer on the agenda. The Moldovan constitution will be applied equally across all territories. Parliament amended its rules of procedure. Romanian is now the sole working language in plenary sessions. The biggest step toward cultural independence against decades of Russian assimilation policies. The pro-Russian opposition left the chamber in protest. The vote passed anyway. Moldova isn't making these moves alone. The EU stands behind it. Brussels proposed doubling annual defense aid to 120 million. EU High Representative Kaja Kallas sent a critical message. The unresolved Transnistria issue will not block Moldova's EU integration path. That sentence matters because Russia had been using Transnistria as a lock for years. Kallas declared that lock invalid. Sandu's strategic goal is clear: signing the official EU membership agreement by 2028. But Russia's threats continue. So where does Moldova get this courage from? The answer is on the map. Transnistria is a narrow strip squeezed between the Dniester River and the Ukrainian border in eastern Moldova. This strip hosts the world's most isolated military presence. Russia's force here is approximately 1,500 soldiers, remnants of the Soviet 14th Army, stationed since the 1992 ceasefire under the label of peacekeepers. Alongside them are an estimated 8,000 local militia, but the number on paper doesn't reflect reality. The vast majority are not elite soldiers. Ordinary civilians conscripted with Russian passports. Ukrainian intelligence assesses that this makeshift army's combat motivation is near zero. People who want to lay down their weapons and return to civilian life at the first opportunity. Moldova's constitutional court declared this military presence illegal in 2000. Russia ignored the ruling, but the real question isn't the strength of these units. It's whether Russia can reach them. And the answer is the same from all three directions. It cannot. Overland reinforcement is impossible because Ukraine stands right in the middle like a wall. Not a single soldier, not a single ammunition truck can pass from Russia to Transnistria by land. The sea route is effectively closed because Ukrainian naval drone control in the Black Sea grows stronger every day. The air route is extremely risky because Ukrainian air defenses and Moldova's closed airspace make any military air resupply nearly impossible. A Ukrainian defense official summed it up plainly in April. It's clear that Russia doesn't have the power to realize its intention of creating a buffer zone near Transnistria within Ukraine. Then there's the Cobasna issue, Europe's largest uncontrolled ammunition depot, 22,000 tons of Soviet munitions. It sounds terrifying. The real picture is different. The vast majority of this ammunition has been unmaintained for a quarter century and has outlived its service life. T-64 tanks, Grad rocket launchers, most are museum pieces. Russia can neither use, transport, nor destroy this arsenal. The OCE has offered to dispose of it for years. Russia refuses. The Kremlin's biggest military trump card has actually turned into a ticking time bomb that could destroy itself at any moment. A besieged garrison, supply cut, reinforcement impossible. Morale collapsed, and the name of the wall besieging this garrison is Ukraine. But Ukraine isn't content with just standing in the way. It's weaving a multi-layered defense line. The Western Operational Command deployed forces directly to the Transnistria borderline. The structure rising on the ground is impressive. Anti-tank trenches stretching for kilometers. Dragon's teeth specially cast to stop Russian armor. Calculated minefields, deepened fortifications, underground bunkers. Every meter of the border is monitored around the clock with autonomous video surveillance and AI-powered early warning systems. Additional mechanized units equipped with armored vehicles have been deployed to the zero point of the border. This shield isn't limited to just the borderline facing Transnistria. Along the Ukrainian-Moldovan border in the Odessa region, security systems are also being strengthened. New fortification elements, tightened checkpoints, modern surveillance systems. The entire Odessa-Moldova axis is being placed under real-time monitoring, and here a critical dimension comes into play. Transnistria is just 50 to 80 kilometers from Odessa. In Russia's original plans, this region was a springboard for besieging Odessa from the west. A scenario of landing naval infantry from Crimea while pushing armor from Transnistria to trap the city in a vice. Had this scenario materialized, Ukraine's connection to the Black Sea would have been severed. But the defense shield zeroed out this risk and created a second effect. With the land border secured, Ukraine can allocate more resources to naval operations. Naval drones can safely depart from the port of Odessa and conduct operations deep in the Black Sea. Land security is transforming into naval operational freedom. Even if Russia can't reach militarily, does it have other cards? If you look at the rhetoric, yes. Security Council Secretary Shoigu openly threatened Moldova. More than 220,000 Russian citizens live in Transnistria, and their security is under threat. If necessary, Russia will use all available methods. Shoigu went a step further, comparing Moldova's treatment of Transnistria to Ukraine's treatment of Donbas after 2014. A familiar language, because Russia used this same rhetoric before intervening in Donbas. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zakharova made the threat concrete. Any attack on our compatriots in Transnistria will receive an immediate and adequate response. Beyond rhetoric, Russia also has a destabilization card, Geopolitics, an autonomous Turkic region in southern Moldova where the population traditionally supports pro-Russian parties. In a 2014 referendum, an overwhelming majority backed the right to self-determination should Moldova lose its sovereignty, a vote parallel to the Crimea referendum. Russia could try to turn Geopolitics into a second Transnistria, creating internal instability to sabotage Moldova's EU path, but Ukraine is reading this card too. Kiev's parliament registered a bill recognizing the Geopolitics as an indigenous people. Russia immediately framed this as evidence of preparations for Moldova's unification with Romania. But the move's real purpose is different, securing Geopolitics minorities' rights at an international level to pull the ground from under Russia's oppressed Turkic minority narrative. The Abkhazia version of the protecting the oppressed people rhetoric that Moscow used in Donbas is being neutralized before it's even born. The threats are harsh. The Abkhazia card is a real risk. But when Shoigu says all available methods, he doesn't specify what those methods are because there's nothing to specify. Rhetoric can't cross the border. A destabilization campaign can delay Moldova's EU path, but can't stop it. Moscow's most powerful weapon is no longer tanks, it's words. And words can't cross trenches. But the reason Putin is condemned to words this time isn't just Ukraine's defense line. What's truly striking is this. Every time this doctrine was previously applied, geography worked in Russia's favor. In Crimea, it had naval superiority and used its fleet. In Donbas, it shared a land border and pushed its tanks through. In Transnistria, geography has turned entirely against it. Moscow doesn't have the capacity to overcome this obstacle. The passportization doctrine is preparing the legal cover for military intervention, but there's no force to fill behind that cover. And this power gap is growing rather than closing.